Hello, and welcome to the Vorpal board stream for Friday night. I hope everybody out there is having a good Friday. We're going to do what we normally do on Fridays. That's right, gang. We are going to infiltrate and possibly destroy a foreboding spire that has brought nothing but death and destruction to our people. We are going to be playing Spire's End tonight, and with me I have a very special guest. I have Greg Favro. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Happy to be here.
And Greg is the writer and designer of this game. So we are going to pick his brain and ask him all about Spire's End, where it came from, what his background is. And then after I shoot him full of questions, we're going to do a playthrough of the game live using Vorpal board. And to give you a brief introduction of what Vorpal board is, it is exactly what you're looking at here on your screen. So it's a web application that lets you play physical board games with people remotely using the actual pieces. So Greg, can you attest that you are not in the same room as me?
I am very much not in the same room as you.
Okay, we are not in the same room. We're not in the same state. Greg's in California. I'm in New York. And the physical game is actually directly to my left. So when I put my hand in here, you'll see my hand. Greg's going to be able to interact with me via the platform, and we'll be able to play the board game together. And so that's what Vorpal Board is. We're currently live on Kickstarter. If you think you might want to use such a tool to play games with your friends, go check us out. We are going to be funding until the 26th of May, and we're right at about halfway through our funding goal. So the next 2 weeks are going to be big for us. So open up another tab, go over to Kickstarter, check us out. Okay. So all that is past us. Greg, give me a little bit of a background of how you ended up designing your own card game. What's your history kind of professionally that led to this point?
Well, I'm a graphic designer. I've been kind of working in the business for, 15 to 17 years or so. And it just came to a point where I'd kind of gotten into the tabletop scene. And I just thought, I don't see the game that I want to play that I've always kind of had in my head. And this has just been gestating for a really long time. And I always wanted to play something like this. And I felt I was at a point where I could do it. So I just kind of put it together. I looked around for an artist and just kept designing this until I found somebody that clicked. And Benjamin Wiseman, he's off in Germany, and he's done amazing work for me. It's been incredibly rewarding just seeing the stuff come back. And I just kind of put it together just out of wanting to play this game.
That's cool. So I'm going to get to the art in a minute because I want to talk about the art a lot because for me, that's what drew me to your game immediately. But I have a real appreciation for the idea of just sort of like wanting to see something in the world and saying, yay, maybe I'll be the guy to build this thing I want to see in the world, right? And like it's exciting to me that people can do that in the tabletop space now. Like you have access to printing, you have access
Sure.
to distribution, you can do funding, you can do all that sort of stuff. This isn't something somebody could do in like the 80s. So it's neat to hear that you just sort of said, I want to make a game, and I'm going to sit down and do it.
Yeah, it was just kind of, I kept looking for that thing that was exactly what it is I wanted to make. And the closest thing to it is, like the Steve Jackson books.
Okay. Yep.
Fighting fantasy and stuff like that. And that would be, I think, the closest link to what it is I'm trying to do. But when I did that, my whole thing was, I had to hold the book open, and then I had to kind of like fight guys, and you had to somehow keep the book open and fight. And I was like, this would work, I think, so much better if it were cards.
Yep.
And it would be a lot looser, and I could, you could move around a little bit better and kind of open it up.
Yep.
So that's kind of how it, kind of the concept.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
And have loot. Like I wanted items and I wanted loot, and I wanted it to be like a point and click adventure type thing where you got a little sense of that, that old LucasArts and Sierra stuff, and you felt a little Monkey Island. And, I tried to harness all the things that I liked as a kid, try and get the little interactive fiction, a little like Zork and just kind of penetrate all that awesome stuff that I always liked and try and put a big soup of it together in this card game.
Yeah, and that's when I first saw a synopsis of this game. I think I saw the term choose your own adventure in there, and like I hate to age either of us, but like I remember as a kid reading those choose your own adventure books, right? Those paperback choose your own adventure books. Oh, do you have one?
I got a few I always kick around right here. I got.
And I remember it was such a simple gimmick, right? But like as a kid, it totally blew my mind, right? Sometimes you'd go through and you'd do it, and then you'd have your brother. I have two brothers. I'd have my brother do it, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I died because I fell into a hole, or something." And he'd say, "Oh, I ran into a monster," and like I would have no idea how he got there, and it felt like magic.
It's great. It was like I can remember going to the bookstore. I would go every week. There's this little bookstore right next to our grocery store, so I always run next door and I'd see what new ones they had. And I used to, it's kind of magical.
Yeah, I agree. And it felt like cheating. Did you ever get that feeling like, oh well, I'm gonna like flip through all the pages and I'm gonna look at all the possible paths? Like it felt like dirty doing that. Like it was like it was like against God to flip through these pages.
Yeah, I was. I didn't do a lot of that because I'm not a rule breaker, and I'm pretty straight and narrow. So I tried to keep it, because I had somebody actually I was kind of pitching my game to, and they were saying, oh well, what's to stop them from flipping forward and going to the next card? I'm like, well, they obviously don't want to, they don't want to do this if they're doing that. I mean, who needs them?
Yeah, honor is what's, like when you die before you pass on into whatever the next world is, somebody will say, were you the type of person that looked through all the cards or looked through all the pages in a choose your own adventure? But that's cool. I was immediately drawn to the concept because I think those choose your own adventure books are fantastic. The other thing that totally blew me away is the art, right? So I saw this game, I think, for the first time on Instagram, which is like a perfect application for it. And immediately I said, okay, I have to reach out to Greg and see if I can get my hands on it. And then I did a print and play version of it before Greg sent me this prototype. So was this, how collaborative was the art direction from you? Like, did you know you wanted it to be this black, white, and red kind of style? Okay, so you knew that much stuff and then passed to the artist.
I mean, every single thing is exactly to, I mean, Ben probably, I don't know how much he likes me at this point because, I mean, I was very, very, very particular. I'm sending him sketches, and I mean, every single little teeny nuance was something that it's so exciting and rewarding to see these things come back. Even if nothing ever happened and I just had these cards myself, it's really been incredibly fun for me because, with like Millicent, the character, I gave him so many little details, and, because my whole thing was I don't want any traditional things. I don't want like a knight and a wizard and a bard, and I wanted them all to have weird things and have it be a little bit odd. So I looked up kind of all these old jobs from like the Dark Ages and things like that, and the silk weaver. And I was like, okay, well, let's give her a giant needle with a thread, and she'll throw it at people and sew them up, and trying to do kind of weird things that I thought would be visually interesting. So I gave him actors, I gave him pictures of people. I told him where I wanted a cut on everybody.
Okay. Yep.
I wanted them to have weapons that looked like, it was in a hurry. That's why Dane here has got boards with nails or, stuff strapped to it. Everything's supposed to feel rushed and feel violent. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it. I think the look is incredible. Immediately I was like, okay, a graphics designer was involved in this project beyond just whoever drew the pictures, right? Because there's consistency throughout everything that very much, it seemed like whoever built it, and now I know it was you, had a very cohesive idea of what you wanted the style of this to look like. And it plays through everything.
Wanted, sorry, don't want to cut you off there.
Yep, no.
No, I wanted it to be kind of raw and like a fanzine, like something that maybe you saw it in the attic and you're like, what is this game? And you like kind of brush it off and it's pretend like it's something from like 1983. And I always prefer comic book art without it being colored. I like inked art better. I just think it feels more personal and it just has this raw kind of personality to it. So I always specifically wanted to do it this way and not have many colors and just have red hits.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So another thing that I think is cool, and I wanted to ask you about the decision making behind this, you put the instructions on the cards too. So I thought this was very clever. So I'm going to put it on the camera here. The actual instructions come as their own kind of mini deck.
Yeah.
And as you flip through them, it's very clever because the way that you play this game, and you're going to see this in a little while, is that you kind of progress through cards. And in the instructions, it's the same way. At the bottom of each card, it tells you, go to card 2. And it starts using the same visual cues that you're going to get in the real game in the instructions themselves, which I thought was very clever. And I wanted to make sure that was the way it was going to stay. This isn't going to be like an instruction book someday. This is the way it's going to stay.
The instructions took me all of last summer to make and get into 10 cards. My goal from the start was if there are more than 10 cards of instructions, I've done something wrong, because this game's really supposed to be fairly simplistic. The combat is very simple. I tried to make it very minimal, but try and make it interesting still. So I really wanted to kind of train people in on how it goes. And initially, the instructions were dispersed within the game. And I had it so that you started and you went through the instructions. But then I quickly realized that it was kind of becoming something where if you played it more than once, it wasn't going to work because the instructions were. So anyhow, I separated the decks and I did it this way. And it ended up being a lot better. But I did, from the very get-go, I always wanted it to be just one stack of cards. So, and the stack of cards is supposed to kind of represent the spire that you're playing through. So each card that you take is you're going deeper, because the whole game's about the descent down. So you have this deck and you're trying to get to the bottom of the deck. So
cool. Yeah, I think it's awesome. And while you were talking, I know you might not be able to see this, but I've been sort of just zooming in on these to show people on the stream kind of what everything looks like. And you'll be able to see sort of the consistency in terms of, and you'll see this as we're going through the cards, what the keywords, like the bolding of the keywords, the coloration of the keywords, putting letters in circles for effects of attacks, and all that sort of stuff is just very consistent the whole way through.
Yeah, it's been really difficult to do an entire game in just shades of red and black.
Yeah, I imagine.
Because you have all these icons and it's like, my God, I've painted myself in a corner. I can't do this in yellow. I've married myself to red.
Yep.
So it's been, it was a challenge.
So we got a question for chat, and Greg, this is going to be like putting the screws to you here, but when is it going out for sale is the question.
Well, yeah, that's a tough one because at this point, ultimately, completely honest, I'm just trying to build the base of people that are interested. And the game, literally, the Kickstarter's ready. I could put it up tomorrow, but I just want to have enough people interested before I do it. So I'm just trying to kind of biding my time here, just trying to kind of create some interest. And half the game is written. And the bosses are pretty much figured out. The mechanics are done. I have a lot of art that I still need, but the thing is, you have the chapter 1 that you have. That's the final version, more or less.
Right.
Other than we have some trash mobs in there and stuff like that.
Yep.
I don't know if you've hit those guys, but those will be separated. Those are 3 chapters of trash mobs. I put all 3 of them in there just so that people could play them. Got it. But
okay.
So that was a long answer to a very short question. I don't know. I would like to have this up on Kickstarter by August.
Okay, great.
That was always my goal.
Okay. Yeah, and you're doing the right thing. As somebody who is currently running a Kickstarter, making sure that you have as big an audience as you can already baked in prior to arrival on the platform is super super critical. I mean, we had great kind of first couple weeks from our kind of baked in audience, and then we're going to be we're promoting and doing stuff as we lead up towards the end of the campaign. But a lot of Kickstarters that are very successful, they almost fund entirely on day one just from that baked in audience. So, even if that takes you some extra time, it seems like that's the right move. It's so crowded in the board and card game space on there that you have to show up with your own people, I think, right out of the gate.
Sure. Yeah. And well, yeah, I mean, that's totally true. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do, especially when I haven't been going to any cons.
Yeah.
I haven't really, that stuff terrifies me. And so I'm trying to do this all through social media and from here. So yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask you. So, how have you been handling sort of like the whole playtest process? Like, are you getting this out of the lab out to local people, or is it mainly friends and family that are playtesting, or how have you been doing that?
Well, this is my first, gig doing this, so this is quite a learning experience for me.
Yep.
But so I mean, obviously, I first played with friends and family. Went through a lot of run-throughs, a lot of bumps in the road, and once I finally got to a place where I was comfortable, I made a print and play version, and then I just I went on Instagram and I just hit people up, just said, hey, and then obviously there were people that were interested, and then they were great candidates for this, and I was like, hey, you're asking me about it, I have print and play, let me just send it to you. And it's great because I've planned this as a 12 chapter kind of thing, so I didn't really feel too insecure about sending out chapter 1 and 2 because what are people going to do with it? They don't have the rest of it. It's not like a game that's self-contained. So I just I send it out, and surprisingly to me, the response was pretty good. So after I did that for a little bit, I had a prototype made, and a very, very few of them, and then I am now in the process. Those all of those are out now. The prototypes.
Cool.
You being one of them that has it, and now I'm in the process of having them previewed and just trying to get through this.
Yeah. No, I think it plays very, very well. The reason I kind of ask is that it plays really well. I've played it by myself a couple of times. I've played it with my wife through one time, and you'll see when we play. It's not the type of game that has super duper complicated mechanics, but
no.
You actually mentioned this to me before we came on stream, and it fits with how I think about the game. It feels crapsy to me, but when I say that, I mean like gambling craps.
Sure.
Where every round you're kind of looking at the probabilities and saying, okay, should I lose some additional health to do a potentially bigger attack? Is it worth it to me or not to take those risks?
Exactly.
And I like it. My brain started immediately thinking, okay, for the cost of 1 more health, I have a 12% increased chance to get triple the damage. So,
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna take that chance. And I think that there likely was a bunch of spreadsheet type work to figure out those attacks and those values, but it does hit that for me, and I was hoping that was your target. So when you said it was meant to be kind of feel almost like a gambling type game, that really resonated. So good work.
Yeah, I very, very specifically made very, very few hit points so that the game is always on the fence, so that pretty much at any time you are you're literally at the brink of life and death. So it's just can you exert enough energy to kill this thing, or are you going to go too far? So yeah, it was always like I'm going all in,
right.
or do I just hold off, So yeah, that was the intent, to just kind of keep it kind of razor sharp. And the game, the progression, you're only ever going to get 6 more hit points. You're only going to get 6 more armor points. So the game's always going to be very limited.
Yeah. Yeah, and it feels tense. I mean, that tension stays throughout the entire time. And you'll see, for folks watching, there are 12 total allies. So these characters are allies, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on and what they're up to. But there are 12 in the game, and you have to get through the entire game with those 12 allies. And if they all die, then you're out. Tonight we're going to try to get through 2 chapters worth. I actually did it, not to brag, not to really stunt on anybody, but I was actually today, I got very lucky. I got through what we're going to try to play tonight without losing any of my characters, but I got some really, really, really lucky rolls. So we'll see if that works out for us. So we're going to play with a subset of that. We'll see how many people live or die and how far we get. But I'm right on the number, right? It's going to be 12 allies total.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. For the first for the Kickstarter, it may be just due to manufacturing things. I may cut the game in half. It may be chapters 1 through 6. So what I think I'll probably do is have 8 characters just for that, and then if things are successful and I can do everything, it would be 12.
Okay.
With some surprises, along the way. There's other guys and crooks and crannies and summons, and there's all kinds of fun stuff I have in there. But
cool.
For now, there's 12 guys.
And the last question I was going to ask is so I've seen 2 chapters worth. I don't think I've seen every potential path through those 2 chapters yet, because there's some decision points and then there's some roles that might change some things. But are you planning on having it be as horribly punishing as those 80s choose your own adventure books? Like, are there going to be just dead end deaths sprinkled throughout here, or is it always going to be that you lose in like a fight kind of way?
No, there's deaths.
All right, yes, that's good.
Yeah, but what I tried to do was, what I tried to do is you make a choice, and then dependent upon that choice, then you roll on a chart to see what occurs. So you're not always just faced with, I got to roll a 1d8 and I might die if I roll a 1. So I tried to make it so you make a choice, and then dependent upon that choice, then you got to roll, and then this thing happens. But normally it's like a 1 or a 2. One guy dies.
You can keep, and then you can keep moving, right?
Yeah. You just have one guy drop. I wanted to make it like a 8 or 16-bit video game where, like Commando or something, where you're just, you're putting in the quarter. You basically pumped in 12 quarters. That's as much money as you got, and you're trying to get as far as you can.
Yep.
So
yeah, and it feels to me like a there's like kind of that modern craze with the roguelike games where you're doing like runs, right? And
sure.
If you die, you die, and then you're starting over again, and you get the sense of, I made it through that early stage good this time, but then it might collapse in the next chapter or whatever. So I've already played enough times where I'd say, like I made it through the first enemy pretty good. I have a chance here. And that it felt the same way as sometimes when I'm playing through bosses in like a roguelike. I don't know if you were kind of specifically shooting for that type of a feel, but it came out.
Yeah, just trying to do that, but keep a very structured story. I mean, it was always from the beginning. It was kind of like a movie. I have this movie. I know how it begins. I know how it ends, and I never have seen it done that way. It's usually random encounters.
Yep.
Most of the games, there's tons of random encounters, and that's just great. I love it. But I really wanted to see something that was, for lack of a better term, on rails a little bit,
yep.
where I can kind of, and that's usually not a good association. But for something like this, where I have a story structure and I have a beginning, middle, and end, I think it's important. But I want to take people on, just like a little kind of structured journey.
Yep.
Where it has different branches, and we all kind of know, I think, that how the choose your own adventure type situation works. But you do kind of, each chapter will branch out, but you do oftentimes meet again. But when you go to the next chapter, it's brought back in. So.
Yeah, and I kind of like that because and the choices that you're making, we'll see again, like as we play, the choices are exposed, right? So okay, well, here's a point that I actually decided to go this way or go this way, and that's nice because then in my mind I can say, okay, well, on my next playthrough I'll try that other direction and just see what happens. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But you actually alluded to my final question about the branching was, generally speaking, it sounds like it is kind of like a go out, come back kind of style.
Right.
It's not, and I realize why, right? Because this is like impossible. Once you branch something like 8 times, you're going to be talking about like thousands of cards or something, right? But
man, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I have a conversation that's later in the game where it branches out like 8 different ways, and the whole chapter is just those 8 branches, because
Okay.
I've tried to keep it to 15 cards a chapter, kind of. So it's pretty challenging. But yeah, I'd love to just have it splinter out all over the place.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
next
this limitation.
game, right? The next time, you know, like you can make a 1,000 card game later. But
Yeah.
but I think that it's cool. The structure of this is very neat. So I think we're gonna tune
Let's
up
do
here
it.
to actually play it. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break for everybody who's in the chat. We're gonna take a quick break. Just make sure that Greg and I are all good to go in connection wise, and we'll probably be back in like 2 or 3 minutes. And we'll talk to you then. So see you in a sec.